Well, good afternoon and a very warm welcome to isifundi training. And we're just over halfway through our six-part bite-sized corrosion series this October. My name is Vanessa Seeley Fisher, and it's my great pleasure to host today's discussion. Now, in this series of isifundi training's bite-sized corrosion, we've been digging into our collective experiences with the scourge, really, of vandalism and theft in the cathodic protection space. We know that we're looking for improved solutions. We're trying to understand some of the nuances about this vandalism problem that we're experiencing and maybe come up with some novel ideas. Today, I'm really delighted to welcome Mr. Sibusiso Nxele of Tronox to the microphone. Sibusiso is an electrical engineer at Tronox, and he's responsible for engineering and maintenance, and that includes responsibility for cathodic protection. So a very warm welcome to you, Sibusiso. Thank you for joining us. And I'd love you to briefly introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, Vanessa. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Sibusiso Nxele from Tronox Sense at February's Mine. It's located next to Mtunzini. And I'm responsible for the maintenance and reliability of the electrical equipment at February's Mine. We are supplied with 88 kV supply from Eskom side, and that is stepped down to 11 kV. And from there on, we are taking responsibility of that electrical installation all the way to the lowest voltage. And we are maintaining electrical equipment and giving support to the maintenance team, which is run by the supervisors, they are electricians. And also we improve electrical designs and new installations, and also help with the task list of the maintenance, the daily maintenance that is done at February's Mine. Cathodic protection is also part of our responsibility to make sure that the pipe is protected and the installation is also maintained and reliable.
All right. Thank you, Sibusiso. And I guess that's where, cathodic protection is such a small slice of your overall work. But the discussion that we've been embarking on is just looking at cathodic protection and its hardware and the challenges that we're experiencing or that asset owners are experiencing with the struggles in keeping that electrical equipment operational, not because the equipment in itself is faulty, but because of the vandalism on the CP hardware. Now, you're dealing with you've referred to the February's Mine, which is carrying water. And would you say that your pipeline is experiencing this vandalism and theft challenge?
Our pipeline is supplying water from a distance of about 36 kilometers from our previous mine. We're getting water from Mhlatuze municipality. I think they are now called Umgeni Water. So the pipeline is quite long and runs through the forest, and there is many chances of vandalism. We have noticed a lot of concrete bunkers being damaged, electrical cables stolen and stripped off, even electrical equipment. The earthing cables on our bridge is completely stripped off. Now and then we need to replace our steel doors that are being stolen to be sold for scrap.
Terribly frustrating, I'm sure. Now, your pipeline, it's not running through mine property the whole way, is it? Some of it is public property. Am I correct?
That is correct. It's running through the public, or should I say it's running in the forest and through sugarcane farmers, and also through the Mondi trees.
Okay. So in your experience with the vandalism, have you experienced more vandalism in the Mondi forest areas, or would you say that the challenges are on the farmlands, or have you not seen a pattern? Or obviously it's largely rural. It's not running through any of the major towns. But are there communities that live close to the pipeline that you think might be targeting it, or do you think this is just opportunistic?
Is a community next to our pipeline, if it is correct to say, the Port Anford area, 80% of the pipeline is located close to that community. And you would find that most of the times when we are driving and doing inspections, there are cattle herders that are always wandering around. And sometimes you noticed that our bunkers are used for shooting targets. So we've seen a number of disturbing things, but mainly because the community is close by, even though it's running through the bushes and sugarcane, but the communities are close to our installation.
Now, that's an interesting comment that you made, that they're using the concrete bunkers as targets in target practice. So that describes merely more of a vandalism than a theft challenge, or are they both a problem in your experience?
Must say the one for shooting targets is the latest one we have seen. Mostly we are experiencing vandalism and theft where the copper cables and bus bars are being stripped off. We have also noticed that mostly it's the installation above ground that is being targeted. There is less effort in stealing the underground cabling and underground infrastructure.
I guess it's a case of if I can see it, I can have a look at it. And if I see that it might be worth the effort that I'm going to put into it, it's available.
It's available, yes.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you think that all of this theft and vandalism is actually impacting the cathodic protection on your system, or has the actual protection on the system been managed to be maintained despite the fact that there's been the vandalism?
Because of this vandalism and theft that we are experiencing, I can say we hardly have the pipeline fully protected when we're doing inspection and testing, because you would notice that some of the areas are protected, but some of the areas have been affected because of the theft. So it is really a very big concern, more especially when you find the structure on the TRU vandalized from concrete to metal structures and all the cables being stripped up, stolen and stripped off, because it takes time to rebuild, reconstruct, and getting everything in place. And especially with our internal process to get everything done, you don't do it overnight or in 1 week. It's a long process. So it really compromises the protection of our public.
Yeah, that is quite disconcerting. What has been the philosophy that Tronox has taken regarding the vandalized infrastructure? Has it actually been, well, let's just replace like for like? Or is Tronox considering replacing with other options, or maybe reducing the hardware on the line to try and reduce the risk of keeping on replacing?
Instead of altering the design, we actually replace like for like, but we rather increase what you call a security. Okay. For instance, there was a place where we had a challenge with the pole transformer being stolen. We found the pole lying on the ground and the transformer stripped off. So we changed it from copper to aluminum transformer. And then we also fenced the area with more protective fencing and included also the alarm. Since then, on that specific area, we have never had any challenges due to the security. But it's not possible to have this kind of infrastructure everywhere or along the line. Some of the places, it's really difficult to have such infrastructure.
Indeed, but it's encouraging to hear that when you're implementing higher security measures, and particularly alarms, and alarms are always the ones that are quite challenging. It's always, and it's not only in the cathodic protection field by any stretch of the imagination, but alarms often get ignored, which defeats the whole purpose of the alarm. But alarming the infrastructure, it's encouraging to hear that that seems to be functioning as a bit of a deterrent at the moment.
Yes, that is correct.
In terms of considering more vandal-resistant measures, what do you think it would take for February's mine to consider changing? Would that be a redesign that you would need to do, or do you think just if additional measures? I mean, on this program we've been talking about, or during the series we've been talking about different options that are available. People who've developed different kinds of test posts which look less appealing or less interesting, perhaps some buried infrastructure. Do you think those things are things that could be considered, or that you would find useful?
Yes, we would like to get support in getting more improved designs in terms of the installation of the cathodic protection. Because even though we have security, we're not always there, and sometimes we do respond, but we respond late. But I think there is an opportunity to improve on the design around the cathodic protection infrastructure.
And we can certainly make sure that we put you in contact with people who have some of that information. It is interesting to me. Yesterday, we were chatting with Katlego Morimukwani from Transit Pipelines. And one of the concerns in the petrochemical industry is that if there's no cathodic protection due to vandalism and theft, and there's a leak associated with that, obviously that's quite environmentally detrimental. One tends to become a little bit more complacent, dare I say, with a water pipeline, because we tend to think that if there's a leak in the water pipeline, it's not quite as serious a consequence. Would you say that that has become a sort of accepted perspective within your experience, or do you think that there's still this need for pipeline integrity in the water sector because water is such a valuable resource?
Water is indeed a valuable resource, but in terms of environment as well, we are not supposed to be releasing water in an uncontrolled manner. So it is quite important for us to make sure that we have water in the pipeline, but not running anywhere else. And it also should be in control, controlled in a manner that it is not going to expose the public, because they will also come and fetch water. And if it's not the clean water for the community and possibly it's under pressure, it also puts them in an unsafe situation.
Gosh, I hadn't actually thought about the fact that if the pipeline isn't carrying potable water and does release water into the environment, that from a community perspective, this apparently free water might actually be deleterious. That's quite a thought that needs to be considered. Thank you for raising that. Sibusiso, just looking at the theft and vandalism aspect, what percentage would you say, and this is possibly a bit of a mean question, but in terms of replacement of your infrastructure, what percentage of it would you say you've had to replace because of theft and vandalism in the operational life of the pipeline?
Well, if I look at what has been affected so far since I started at Fabrice in 2016, 80% of the line has been affected by what we are talking about today. If we have to do a replacement, I think it is something that we as the company will consider doing, provided it is going to improve the security of our infrastructure.
Yes, I think that there is sometimes also this misconception that cathodic protection is a frustrating evil which needs to be monitored or managed at an operational level. And yet, I think your perspective is that the cathodic protection is ensuring the integrity of the asset, and therefore looking at ways of the security of that integrity, which seems a bit bizarre to be talking about,
Yes.
that becomes quite a key consideration.
Yes, of course.
Sibusiso, I wonder if you've, in your experience with the cathodic protection equipment, if you've looked at any of the equipment around and thought, oh, there's a much better way of doing this, because sometimes I think those of us in the direct industry are less able to see the limitations because we work with these things so often. So I wondered if you'd had any ideas of the kinds of things, even if not in detail, that might work and might be a deterrent to the vandals.
Well, when it comes to vandalism, I think concrete might be thick, and we might think it will take people a long time to break it. I was quite impressed and amazed with the design when I got to see the installation at first. I thought, wow, this is strong. But I was surprised when I got there and it was vandalized and broken down, and they were able to access it. So in this case, it looks like if we go steel instead of concrete, it might be a little bit better. But we also need to look at a number of things, even if we go steel. Are we going to weld everything? Are we going to use a different method of locking, because you cannot enclose it with welding in full, because they can still break the doors. So it's quite challenging. So yeah, I think on my side, I think if we go steel, it will be a bit expensive, but it will restrict those people who are busy vandalizing our infrastructure.
It's very interesting you say that. When I was chatting in one of our previous sessions with Mr. Gareth Rath, one of the things he was saying was that the big concrete enclosures, some of them they've lined with steel. So we know that they chip away at the concrete in the hope of getting in. And sometimes if it's been steel lined, then they do hit a steel inner lining. which thwarts them, at least at this stage, until they come up with another plan. So perhaps that's something that could be considered. The difficulty with all of this is that the cost of cathodic protection is a number. And as soon as we start to introduce these vandal resistant, or what we endeavor to be and hope to be vandal resistant options, we're adding on costs that at some point we almost need to be quite philosophical about. Are we investing too much in trying to protect it from being stolen? Does it still have value in being used as the infrastructure? I don't know if you've got any thoughts in that regard.
Well, we have quite a long time still as a Fabris mine to mine the area where we are. I think for now we can still up to 2037, which can still be extended. So we still need to use that infrastructure. That is one of our most reliable source of water supply. So looking ahead, we still need to protect and look after that infrastructure. So it is worth looking at new designs, looking at new reliable protective ways of keeping our infrastructure.
Right. That's actually a very helpful comment. In the bulk water scenarios, the infrastructure has what the engineers hope will be an infinite life. But within your mining sector, very often your mines have a finite life, either due to license constraints or the extent of the ore body. And that gives quite an interesting perspective onto what the value is of maintaining the infrastructure. And yeah, I find that very valuable. Thank you.
I may add to that, 2037 is actually not the guaranteed period. There is a possibility that the mine can still be extended for more years, even after 2037, possibly 5 to 10 years, depending on the area of mining that we are still going to get. So yes.
Right. Yes. And so I think it's important for us to keep in mind that as engineers, and many of those on the call today are indeed engineers who design the pipeline infrastructure, that we are designing pipelines, we want them to last. And cathodic protection, if it's a steel pipeline, is one of the key components to ensuring the long-term viability. So now we need to try and find ways to tell the vandals, guys, go elsewhere, go and destroy something else. But yesterday's discussion, we did deal with, and I do think it's still very valid, that we are dealing with some sort of socio-economic challenges that really are outside of your mining operations, of the cathodic protection operation, and yet which directly influence it and cause us to need to find ways to accommodate fighting the scourge of vandalism and theft. Well, thank you, Sibusiso. It's been lovely chatting with you. I don't know if you have any closing comments which you'd like to share with us on the topic.
Well, though I do not have a lot to say, but I would like to thank you for this opportunity and hope that such opportunities will actually open up more improved solutions for our installation. As I said before, mostly we living in places where communities are close to our installations, and it's not easy to control the situation. And every time you go back, there's something new and even worse than before. So yes, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you, Sibusiso. It's been wonderful to have you with us, giving us a different perspective and helping us to see that the cathodic protection really does have value. And reinstating the vandalized infrastructure, whilst immensely frustrating and costly, is still valuable because we need to keep the assets operating with integrity, and we can't afford the risk to the environment, to the population, and to the mining to have the water being lost along the way because the pipe is leaking as a result of no cathodic protection. So I do thank you for your time, and I thank you to our audience, and I encourage you that if you've got some great ideas, we're open to trying to solve this problem together, because I do think this is a conversation which is bigger than just the asset owner and the cathodic protection design engineer and even the cathodic protection equipment designers. But it's a bigger discussion because I think we need to not forget the fact that we're dealing with a socio-economic scenario which is driving this scourge of vandalism and theft, particularly here in South Africa. And so if you've got bright ideas, even if they seem completely way out, they might just spark something that could become a very useful solution to this challenging problem.